Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. I am Chris, joined by my brothers Adam and Eric, and we are back in the
Hello.
room to talk
Hello.
more about Metal Gear Solid, actually, instead of just video games. Basically, we realized that we have spoken in great detail about Metal Gear Solid 1, and in the last two podcast episodes, we spoke in great detail about Metal Gear Solid 2, and then, lo and behold, Metal Gear Solid 3. And so, we've decided it's only right and only fitting that we finish off the saga. And we go on to Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots, which I do believe, when the trailer was announced, was the very reason we got a PlayStation 3, right? Like, it was the...
Yeah.
No, there wasn't a trailer at that point. It was just we knew it was coming. You know what I mean?
Trailer? I thought there was a trailer before PlayStation 3 ever came out.
No.
Pretty close to the early days of PS3, wasn't it? And then it was like, wow, every game is going to look like this, and it didn't. That's a lie.
Mean, it was just no doubt that there was going to be MGS4, which is why we got a PS3.
Yeah, I always thought there was magazines there about. Anyway, regardless of that, so we're going to be talking in great detail about Let's do that again.
The
T-tail.
T-tail.
We're going to be talking in great detail about Metal Gear Solid 4, what we like about it, don't like about it, and all of its story goodness. This game is really the finale of the series in terms of its narrative.
Yeah.
And so this one is the hardest one to talk about without going into spoilers. So like before, we'll do our non-spoiler section, but it'll probably be the shortest non-spoiler segment because gameplay-wise, it's much of the same with some extra additions and improvements. But other than that, really the meat of this game is its story, its narrative, and its many, many, many cutscenes. Going out, he should have just made like a 15-hour film, really, shouldn't he? He should have just made this huge.
He did.
He pretty much did. This is pretty much what it is.
Honestly, the gameplay is just like a fancy navigation of menus.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So without further ado, let's talk MGS4, Guns of the Patriots. So Eric,
Yes.
I'm going to come to you first.
Okay.
And I suppose, again, no spoilers yet,
Okay.
but generally, your thoughts on the game without talking about any of the story. Hold on.
It existed. That's as far as I could go without talking about the story.
No. You actually said in the last episode, you said MGS4 was your favorite one and the one you played the most.
I'm pretty sure every time we talked about a Metal Gear, I said that either that one or the one after or before it was the one I played the most. I have no idea which one I actually played the most. But that was a fun game to play.
Yeah, so what was so fun about it?
All the different... It had collectibles without having like a trophy for collectibles. Well, it was actually before the time of trophies.
Yeah.
But it had all the weapons to collect. And then like having to kind of like... You had one of the characters who was able to like take off the ID tags because I won't explain that. That's God, it's so difficult when I go to the story. But anyway, collect guns. It was cool, and then collect different like camouflages and outfits and everything. And the fact that even within cutscenes, whatever camouflage or outfit or whatever you were wearing in the previous gameplay section that you did for 2 seconds, was in the cutscene as well. And like just the different kind of gameplay mechanics he added on to what he already had was really nice. Plus crouching. To be able to move while crouched, that was great.
Yeah. That was a cool addition, alright.
Took him long enough.
Before, yeah, wasn't it? You crouched, and then if you started to move, it would go prone. You'd lie down straight away and move that way. Like, you wouldn't actually move while crouched. Yeah. It's strange how, like, those are the big game developments. You know, like, back in the day, like, it's like, nowadays, if you couldn't crouch and move, it would just be shit, like, you know, or if you couldn't climb something or jump. There's no jump button. I'd always noticed that actually in a new game. If there's no jump button, I kind of go, this is weird. Like there's no. That was one of the. I remember Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm not giving out about the game, but it was one of the ones where I was like, where's the fucking jump button? And like the only way he jumps is if it's a scripted moment or if you end up in aerial battle and he's locked onto an enemy, then he will jump and do it. But like I remember being like, man, I really want a jump button. I don't like it's something you only miss if it's not there. Like if it was there, you'd probably never use it. But yeah. Adam, your general thoughts on the game?
I think the first thing that really stands out to you is the graphical performance and the character animation. Like I know the trailer you're talking about, which is the segment where you're in the kind of Afghan region, going through this town. There's like the militia fighting, and that was such an impressive demonstration. Like with the camera shakes, the explosions going around you, and you could the amount of things you could do as Snake, like obviously go prone and stuff like that. But I think it was one of the first where he could almost dive to the ground, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And then you could roll onto your back and you could toss a grenade over your head and stuff like that. Like, I mean, when you try to play the game, a lot of that stuff is actually quite complicated to do. They didn't quite figure out the button mapping quite well, but it was a huge advancement over Snake Eater. But even the facial animations and textures, lighting, all of that was like a really huge leap. And it was at a point as well where the developers didn't really quite figure out the PS3 just yet. Like people were still struggling with it, which is why I think actually there's not that much gameplay in PS3 or on MGS4, is because it's quite difficult to develop for the PS3. But I think they made a very impressive effort.
Yeah. No, I think to echo a lot of what you guys are saying, like the game additions that they put in, like I don't think there's enough gameplay to get to actually utilize it all. You know that way. Like as soon as something's introduced to you, you're pushing it. But to be honest, that's not the draw of the game either. Like So at no point was I going like, nah man, come on, give me more gameplay. Because it's really not the draw of this game. But I think it was cool how many additions they gave, the different ways Snake could move. I like the graphics blew my mind, absolutely, and I to this day I still think they're really, really good. Like I don't think they're bad. They are some of the best graphics on the PS3. The character animations are fantastic. The performances of the characters are fantastic, and then the music I thought was really, really good. I think the music still not as good as it still doesn't reach the heights of the first game for me. I know like there's moments where you could say, well, what are you talking about? But I think it stood out a little bit more than the last two games. Like
really?
Aside from Snake Eater's opening theme, obviously there's bits where like they have a main theme that they play over and over again, where it's like, oh well, now I remember it because it's an actual melody that's being repeated. I felt 2 and 3 didn't always have those kind of moments. But overall, yeah, I fucking love the game. It really, it's hard to like talk about it generally and not just jump straight into spoilers, because like realistically, that's the draw of the game. And also, my favorite thing about the game is how it ties up the threads of the overall story. Yeah. I have never, ever experienced... Like, I'm not saying that MGS4 is by any means the best final game in a series, right? Like, it could be. But I have never experienced a game that ties up its history so satisfyingly. It's... Yeah. Actually, I don't think I've ever experienced the end of any series that so satisfyingly addresses as much as it possibly can in a way that seems then totally cohesive, and as if Kojima had planned it all along.
we know he didn't.
Well, yeah,
I have heard of people that didn't like the story or the tying in at all, because they felt it was a bit like the architect sequence from.
I knew you were going to say
Matrix Reloaded. Yeah. But I for one really love the architect scene in the Matrix Reloaded, so it's absolutely what I was looking for. Because I think that's one thing that from MGS2 when it ended on a kind of almost a cliffhanger.
Oh yeah.
Even though it was supposed to be the last one, it still ended with kind of so many questions. It's like, well, what the hell are the Patriots? Like we kind of just heard about them. Who are they? Ocelot's gone. You know, he's after taking Metal Gear Ray with him, so we didn't
possessed by liquid.
We didn't even get to finish him off.
Yeah.
And there's like this fucking baby hidden. Olga's baby was taken away by the Patriots.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, okay, so there's all these loose ends, and then the next game is Snake Eater based in the 60s.
And it
you're
gives you even more stuff where you're like,
what?
And where does that happen? And where does that go? And, you know. So
which is it just leaves you with way more questions, and you're kind of like, I don't see how all this ties in. So 4 wraps all together in a really nice bow.
Yeah, I think so. I really appreciated it for that. It made it feel like the whole thing was so, like it was kind of like when you watch, at least the first time you watch Revenge of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not as much in Revenge of the Sith, to be honest, right? Revenge of the Sith is a little bit more straightforward. Like, it's really just one path. But there are little things in it where you go, you know, like the bit where they go, like, it's a simple little throwaway line, but like, wipe the protocol droid's mind. And you go,
yeah.
See, he did think of it. Yeah, that's why he doesn't recognize Obi-Wan when he's, yeah. Lucas, he did know what he was doing, but like, he didn't. You know, he knew some of it, but he was making up some as he went along, like, well, wouldn't it be cool if that actually leads to that? Yeah, it would, you know. There's elements of that going on. So it's just really interesting. So this isn't really a spoiler. It's in all the material that's on the cover of the case. Snake in this game, Solid Snake, has aged tremendously. Where no one else has, right? It's only a few years after MGS2. I think it's 4 or 5 years.
2009 to 2017 or something, isn't it?
I think it's 2014, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was like 5 years or something like that.
Oh, okay.
After it. So how do people feel about Snake being so old in this game?
I really liked it because it goes against the grain of usually playing as the young, youthful kind of character. But now he could be the grumpy person while being old. So now he's a grumpy old man. He's like Clint Eastwood in like nowadays films. It's great. Like it adds like a new level of like kind of comedy to him. But then it kind of does.
That's interesting. I never looked at that as comedic.
Oh no, sometimes he is kind of a little funny, like with his grumpiness. But then also kind of revolutionized the idea of video games having old characters to play as, to be strong characters who can kick ass, such as Joel and Kratos in.
Okay.
So
you think Old Snake gave rise to that kind of thing, or?
I think, well, I can't really. Maybe I'm wrong, but I can't really think of a game where you play as an old guy who, if you spend crouched for too long, has to kind of like stretch his back because he's like putting it out of place.
Yeah.
But I really liked it, and I think they had a good reason as to why as well.
Yeah.
How did you feel about Old Snake?
I think it added urgency to the whole thing.
Yeah.
It kind of also gave. I think it also, like with Snake, you're kind of like, well, you're getting old, man. Why don't you just live out the rest of your days? But the fact that he's still willing to fight on and see it through, it's the only thing he knows as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think it made it feel like at any point you could drop dead and lose, because it's not like he's not just like an old man. It's not that. He's still quite a young man.
No, but it's his body is failing him.
His body's decaying, basically. His cells are dying and aging rapidly. So he's got the fighting spirit of a young man, but his body is disagreeing with him. It just feels like this thing that's holding him back from doing the things that he needs to do, which is kind of, I suppose, a biological representation of what's happening in the game, which is there are these barriers that are stopping you from doing the things you need to do, and that's what you're trying to take out.
Wow. Oh, you always take it to another level, man. It's all metaphorical, you know?
It's like metaphorical Gear Solid.
That's the translation of it, isn't it? Mate, before I go use on it. I absolutely. Where do you go from here? End of the episode. No, I absolutely love the old Snake visual. I think not only for the narrative of it, because I do think they justify it, but I think from the outlook of it, it just feels like the end of a journey. It feels like the end of this character's life. Like this is like there's plenty of times where like this is my last mission, but like this is like not only they're saying it's his last mission, but like they're showing you like it is literally his last mission because he doesn't have long left to live. Even if he succeeds, there isn't a life after this. There isn't a possibility of sequels. Like this is definitively coming to the end of Solid Snake's life.
Yeah.
And I love then as a result, and I don't count this as spoiler territory because it's going off at the end of MGS2 and it's part of the setup of this game, right? So Liquid Ocelot is the antagonist of the game. And because he's wearing his hair down a certain way and the way he actually now looks like an old Liquid.
Yeah.
And I love the imagery of it. Like I know he is Ocelot, like in how he appears, but I just love the imagery of like in MGS1 you had young Solid and Liquid fighting, and now it seems like years later it's old Solid and old Liquid, and it's like the never-ending battle or something, and it's like one of them has
kind of
to win,
looks
one
like
of them
the
has to
whole,
lose.
you know, like Rambo 4 or with Arnold Schwarzenegger coming back to play the Terminator and all that kind of stuff. It's like these older veterans coming back to try and be their younger selves, and
one more time.
Yeah, there is that element to it, but the whole game is quite, you know, there's a gloominess hanging over the whole thing just because the beginning of the game, obviously the start screen is well, it's old Snake at a graveyard and he puts a gun in his mouth. So there's almost like for the whole game, it's like you kind of know where it's going.
Oh yeah, and they showed that in the first ever teaser.
Yeah.
They showed it was a different kind of scene and it wasn't fully rendered yet, I don't think. But he
was in like an Afghan building, I think, sitting on a pillar.
Sitting on and he puts the pistol in his mouth, and they just have like a voiceover of like, "This is my last mission" or something like that. And the screen cuts to black, and you're gunshot, and you go, "No, he wouldn't. Would he? No." And then of course you're playing the game, and that image is constantly looming over you, and they keep talking about it's his last mission, and every time he's trying to do something, there's people saying, "Snake, you know, you're not up to this anymore," and it really does feel like an ending of a saga. And I kind of love it for that, because like I think if you're gonna end something, you have to know you're ending it. You can't kind of go, it could be the end, but also let's leave it open to the possibility of sequels. Like you have to make that bold choice of like, this is the last one ever. You know, and then of course you make more, but you know, you go back when you can't go forward. That's always how it goes. What's the last like? There's a lot of characters, right? Without going into spoilers, there's a lot of characters who return in this game. What do you feel about like the ensemble cast of this particular game?
I think it reinforces that this is the end. You know what I mean? Much the same as like Infinity War and Endgame, by bringing all of these characters like together, bringing them all back. It goes to show you this is the end, and then it's showing you the journey you went through and all the characters you have met, and you know, like allies you have and enemies you have to fight and have fought. So I think it is really nice, and it brings back good memories of your time playing all these games. So I really do like that they bring everyone back.
Yeah,
I think the cast of heroes is really, really good. The villains aside, not so much. You know, you don't really get to see. Well, they can't really. You know, they can't exactly bring a bunch of them back. Like you're after obliterating most of them.
Yeah.
But even as far as new enemies are concerned, they're not as creative or interesting as some of the ones from the past. So the new the good side of characters, I think, is really good in the game, but not so much on the bad side.
I like
bad
the
side.
the bad side. Yeah. Metal Gear Solid, it's always complicated. You know, there's a few twists coming, guys.
Yeah.
I think I overall really like the cast of characters, and I love, even if they're not in it, I think every character has, or at least most of the characters in the MGS series have at least a moment of recognition through these flashback sequences.
Yeah.
That I adore, that I think it could be my favorite thing about the game. I just think if you've played all the other games and then you play this game and it really builds on the nostalgia of everything that's gone before. And not only does that help you go, wow, look how far we've come, but it also is like, really is the end. Like, this is we're leading up to like this grand finale and kind of highlighting the journey that has come before it. I love those moments. I think they're so good. And like, they happen from the start all throughout the game. You know, there's flashbacks every time you meet someone. For me, it never got old. It might the next time you play it, if you start doing it, it's like just making all these like flashy noises every time you push X. But I just loved that. I thought it was so good. There was part of me that wish other games would do it, but it owned it. You know what I mean? Like, if other games do it,
you know, I mean,
yeah,
you get it in Uncharted 4.
Oh, you do
you know
get
what I mean?
flashback scenarios. Yeah, I just really like the flashiness, how quick it is.
Yeah.
Like the little. I just think that's really cool. It's like, it's very visual. And I think that's pretty much all we can talk. Not spoilery. I actually don't know what else we could possibly talk about without diving right into, like, because like from the get-go it jumps into the story. You know, it's impossible to. Okay, you know what? Here's the last thing we can talk about, and the actual setting, right? Now, normally a Metal Gear Solid game takes place in a set location, maybe two, right? This one is really sort of, it's supposed to be a globe-trotting adventure because the world itself has changed as a result of the end of MGS2, right? So in this case, I don't think the setting is a place. The setting is what's going on, right, in the world.
Right.
So how did we feel about the setting with that kind of mindset?
So we're not talking about the location. We're just talking about the.
Well, I suppose the situation. What's going on in the world of MGS4? Like, how did everyone feel about it?
I think
Did anyone understand it?
Yeah, well, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I think MGS2 kind of opened that up. It's one of the first games, I think, that kind of takes you away from. You know, you explore two different locations technically, right? Yeah. It's the tanker and then the plant. And then at the end, you're taken away from the plant and you land in New York. And I think that kind of opens it up because it's kind of the first time you actually see Snake or even Raiden in a civilian location where there's people actually walking around, you know? There's something about how that game ends just opens it up to the wider world.
Yeah.
And they kind of make it clear that this is going to be a worldwide issue, you know, with Ray gone, and they even hinted at other countries and governments building their own Metal Gears. Like, everyone has a Metal Gear. So they've already established that it's a worldwide issue. So I think it just fits. It absolutely fits. As for the actual locations in the game, I think they could have helped, like, expanded them a bit more. Allowed us to explore them a bit. Some of them kind of, I suppose, they're a little generic. They don't really feel lived in, or there's culture really.
Yeah.
In any of the areas. I think Afghan is probably the best. Well, we assume it's Afghan. We don't really know where it is. It's just the Middle East is what they say.
Yes.
We actually don't know where it.
Specify where the world it is.
They don't specify where it is. That one I think feels more authentic than, like, they go to South America and they go to Europe. Those areas kind of, yeah, they just feel a little generic in comparison, I think.
How about you, Eric?
Yeah, I like the reach that the Patriots have in this one now.
Yeah.
And I like the introduction of PMCs, like paramilitary corporations, the idea that the war economy. And so, like, that's how countries are funding themselves, is through placing bets, essentially. Maybe I'm incorrect about this, but is it that countries are placing bets on particular, like, military forces?
Now I don't know. I have no
I don't
idea.
think so.
I thought there was just war everywhere. and
Ye-
they're
ye-
profiting off it. I don't really. I'm not sure who the war is against, or who's against who, or what's going on.
Yeah, but I thought it was so anyway. And I like having the whole mercenary thing, like yeah, the war economy. People then the militia and the rebels are fighting for their country, for their land against these essentially invaders. Is well, what I got from it anyway. I'm not
Yeah.
100%. Were they
I don't
clear?
even know
Actually,
what's going on.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
This time it's not going to be us telling you though, like what the plot is, because I don't think we know either. Like in terms of the actual conflict, like I know what the actual story is about.
yeah,
In terms of who's fighting who, I don't know. I don't even know if that matters. I don't know if that's even the point, like who's fighting who, or like it's just become
no.
life or something in the world. It's like everyone is just fighting and everyone is tagged and under control, and those who aren't are being hunted and sought after. And it's like if you're not on the system, then you're an enemy to the system. I always thought that was kind of the thing. Like, and the PMCs then work for the Patriots. And so the Patriots
Yeah.
aren't a country, so they're not using a country militia. They're using their own private military, and it has become the military force of the world as a result. Or at least all these different military companies have become the military force of the world.
Well, I know
It's all very complicated.
they have because when you're in the Middle East, you fight the praying mantis, right? And
Militia
praying
or
mantis,
PMC, yeah.
is one cell of like 6 cells that work for Liquid.
Yeah.
Ocelot.
Yeah,
Who
they
works
belong
for
to Outer Heaven.
Yeah. It's anyway, right. Back to my point, right? So I really like that kind of whole opening up that idea that there is more to military than just countries fighting countries, and that there is these whole like paramilitary corporations and everything. And then, but I would prefer if, like what Adam was saying, we did stay in Afghan.
I didn't
Yeah,
say we should stay there. I'm just saying I'd like if
Or Middle East, even wherever.
Well, then you'll agree with me because I think we should stay there.
yeah.
I
I
really
like going to the other areas.
I like what's going on in the world. And I like the way the story plays out. The only thing that I would change, it's just my opinion, I was really excited about the desert terrain, mainly because, well, not only because I thought it kind of, when you see ruined buildings and sand and the thoughts of war and everything, there's a visual thing that goes with it where it's like there's an absence of life when you don't see like plants and stuff. There's like obviously that's just part of the world's terrain, but it's just there's sort of an image that I couldn't get out of my head, like this is what the world could become, like all over the world if war keeps going, right? Like just this kind of ruined terrain. So thematically I liked it, but also the first game was snow, the second game was water, the third game was jungle. So for me, desert was the next obvious kind of where the focal point should be. And I would have preferred, like, keep the story intact. I would have preferred that up until Act 4, and I won't say what that is yet, you are in the Afghan. So the first 3 acts are all, well, Middle East, wherever it is, that all of it takes place in the Middle East in this war zone. I think you would get more time with growing accustomed to what's going on in the world. I think you'd get more time to actually use that kind of gameplay that they had introduced if you had stayed in one place for much longer. And then later on, they throw you a curveball and take it to these other places and lead you up to the big finale. For me,
I definitely think the
that
area, I thought that area was actually okay sized. I don't think it needed necessarily to be bigger because I think the other areas are not as big. I think it starts to shrink after that. But I like the addition of kind of a desert-like area, right? It adds a whole new type of combat. It kind of feels along the lines of, like Modern Warfare and like Black Hawk Down, that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
But I like that you get to go to South America and Europe, but I think they could have used it as an opportunity to have a kind of a callback to the previous games. So make South America a jungle. Okay, so actually it's like the Snake Eater kind of survival in a
like very deep jungle, as opposed to what they did. Yeah.
But it's, with these newer graphics, but how you're going to go about it is going to be different than how you did it in the first act, which is in the desert.
Yeah, okay.
So you'd have to actually adapt and change your sneaking. And then with Europe, you're back to urban. It's called back to either NGS2 or 1. You're in an urban environment. So now you're techniques are going to be different, and there is a sneaking element, obviously, but
Wouldn't
it's
have been
not
so
good.
cool though for the Soliton radar to come back up in the corner of your screen. And I know thematically there's actually a reason you don't use the Soliton, or there's a story narrative reason as to why you don't use the Soliton radar. But
Yeah.
I'd have loved to have seen that back. I'd have
Really?
loved to have seen it. Yeah. I mean, I loved the Soliton radar.
See, I don't think
I'm not a
it
huge
wasn't.
fan of the little
Yeah.
circle
It wasn't
thing
necessary
with
though.
No.
No, but like to have a radar at all, I would prefer to see good old ding, like I just love that.
What
It's-
actually, when we're on talking about technology and things that we can't spoil, what did everyone think of the geckos?
I like them.
As far, I don't know. I mean, I don't really care about them. As far as like Metal Gears go, like I know they're not really a Metal Gear, but like they're kind of the new Metal Gear in this game. Like there's not really a new Metal Gear. Like they kind of are it. They're definitely my least favorite. I definitely prefer everything that came before them. Like the Shago had even I prefer.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're not Metal Gears. They're
They're just
they're
weird.
units. They're
Yeah.
enemies, and I think what makes
It's
them
the cow
scary-
noises though. That's weird. Like there's moments of them where it's cool, but like those weird fucking cow noises. Like what the hell are they thinking?
I think there
Then
was
when it's, like, straighten up
there was
and
actually a cool
bumps and
reason
stuff.
for that. I think it's maybe hidden in the
I'm sure there is because he always has a fucking amazing.
yeah.
Like,
Like it is actually kind of. I
'cause,
thought
like,
it was pretty cool.
you
They're-
start off, you go Fat Man, what a stupid name, and then you find it and you go what, best
Yeah.
thing ever.
I
but-
don't know if this is true, but I did hear this, and I think the reason for it was something to do along the lines of they were trying to apply animal noises to these robots. One, it gives them kind of an approachness to it. Like so, if you're working with it, if it's on your side, there's a kind of a way to approach it. And then if you're an enemy and you're shooting and killing it, and it sounds like an animal dying, that you'd be more sympathetic to it being as a
then they
as a
should have
machine.
gave it like puppy noises, man.
Yeah,
Like,
they should have just
like
had
a
like
cow is kind of like it's like well now I'm hungry, whereas like if you were shooting something that was going you'd be like oh man come on what are you doing to me? I think I actually would have preferred like I know they wanted to show new things. I think I genuinely would have thought it'd be much cooler to see unmanned rays that have different like camo for different areas, but unmanned rays.
Jesus, imagine taking that on.
Yeah, no, but like if they're surveying territories and people once they hear a ray come, they shit themselves and run. I think it would have tied in better for me because it's like you saw him get away with a ray at the end. If it's like Ray has been mass produced into these like fucking crazy weapons that the Patriots have, everyone else has these shitty Metal Gear units or whatever, but like the Patriots have like all these unmanned rays that they had been building all along, since
All right, crazy
two.
idea. Crazy idea.
Fucking great.
How about the
Go.
Ray
Yeah.
and Gecko?
Yeah, do you know what?
Well,
Actually,
I think having
yeah.
Ray,
Fine.
like having a conflict with Ray at the end of the Middle East act probably would have been
If one
a
had
really cool battle.
actually you get no boss fight in the
Yeah.
Middle East. It takes a while for boss fights to kick off in this game. And so yeah, that would have been so cool. Like if you took on a few geckos at that point and you were like, yeah, I got this, and then a ray pops down,
Yeah.
and you got to take it on, like that would have been so cool.
And it could come down from the sky and it could be like a Ray Skywalker Metal Gear.
What the fuck are you talking about? But yeah,
You just kept saying Ray and I just thought of
okay.
looking at the sequel trilogy.
I would have liked to have seen that. So I'm not mad on the geckos. I think if there was something else, then they would be fine. But because they are like the big thing that seems to be like patrolling the world, I don't really care.
I
for
mean,
them.
I prefer them to the Scarabs.
Yeah, the Scarabs I absolutely
there.
hate.
Yeah, I
they're-
don't like Scar either.
They really ruined the game, I think.
The
Because they're
whole-
not even difficult.
No, they're not. They're just annoying. They're just annoying as fuck.
And they look silly.
Okay, so I think look, we've talked about the setting, we've talked about some of the gameplay and the graphics, the visuals, and some of the characters without getting deep into the spoilers. We can't go much further, I think, without really getting into it. So from now on, it's a spoiler talk. And again, if you have played the game, you are familiar with the game, or you don't care about the game and you just want to listen to some guys chat about this game and be like, what the fuck are they talking about? Then welcome aboard. Whereas if this is something you haven't played and you're like, you know what, I'd love to play, I don't know how you'd get it, to be honest, but if you really want to source a PS3 and get MGS4 and play it, I don't know if it's on the PS now. It's on the Xbox Game Pass thing.
No, it's not.
See, that's what I'm wondering, because MGS2 and MGS3 were. But
it is on PS now.
It's on PS now. Okay, so you could check it out. Definitely worth playing if you've played the other ones. Not sure if it's worth playing if you haven't. A friend of mine started with MGS4.
And what was the verdict?
He loved it, but he didn't really get it. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't really.
That's quite surprising.
He got a gist of what was going on, but all the nostalgia beats obviously didn't hit. Yeah. So his experience was different, and I think he totally went backwards. I think he went 3, 2, 1. Because he was sort of like, well, at this point, there's no point in going 1, 2, 3, because I know the outcome of the whole thing. So I might as well look at it like take a step back each time and peel back the.
Yeah. I think the best way, if no one has ever played this game, the best way to kind of explain it, I guess, not explain the story, but explain the kind of nostalgic feeling we get from it, is if you've ever played Uncharted 4 and you're in Drake's attic near the beginning of the game and you're looking at all the things that you've picked up from the other games.
Yes.
And then you go downstairs and you play the PlayStation with his boy. That like MGS4, the entire game is that.
Yes.
It's not just one 100%. Scene. The entire game is that.
Yeah, and if you played that and didn't really get it, but you enjoyed the rest of the game, you won't enjoy this.
No, yeah. It'd be very difficult to enjoy MGS4 if you've never played the other ones.
I think so. So, now that we
I think you can play MGS2. You alright there, Chris?
Yeah, go on.
I think you can play MGS2 without playing the first one.
Whoa!
I think you can play MGS3 without playing any of the others.
I think you can play MGS3 and MGS1 without playing any of the others. But I think MGS2 and MGS4, and this is not anything against them, rely on the others.
I don't think MGS2 does.
I think MGS2 hits so much harder. I think you can play it, but like it's still, there's a lot of stuff that won't resonate. Like it doesn't do as much nostalgia as MGS4, but MGS2
it doesn't do fucking any.
Well, the whole plot of MGS2 is to recreate MGS1. Like,
I know that, but you don't get that until you play MGS4.
No, they say that at the end of MGS2. You just don't get.
It really doesn't hit though. It doesn't really hit until you play MGS4.
Now, what do you think, Eric? Can you play MGS? Can you play all the other ones independently?
I mean, yes, yeah, of course you can play them.
You can't, but like, should you?
Should you? No, that'd be like, it's just gonna take Marvel, very famous, the MCU. That'd be like picking up, I don't know, Civil War and be like, who the hell's that guy?
Yeah, it's you can watch it, but like,
you can watch it, but you don't know who the hell any of these people are.
I think you're kind of
watch any of the others.
Like, my point is, I think you could play MGS2 first and then go back to MGS1. Of course, I don't think it's going to affect your impact on like how you take the game.
Yeah, okay.
MGS4 is the only one in the series where you just can't do that.
No.
You actually have to play all three to get this.
You do. So, with that in mind, and full spoilers now, where do we begin with this beast? You actually mentioned they're probably the smallest part of this story. Like in the other games, bosses play probably a much bigger role, right? In this game, the bosses are kind of just there to be bosses, really. They're just there to be boss fights. Like they're not really important to the plot. But what did everyone think or make of the Beauty and the Beast core?
I mean,
sorry, Eric. Adam has to like swallow all of his anger.
Is that what they're called?
Snakehound is another name for them, which is a cooler name, but they never really refer to them as that in the game.
No, they just always refer to them. Well, it's Drebin. Drebin always refers to him as B&B.
The
B&B core.
Yeah.
When he decides to go, let me tell you about the story. It's like, man, I don't have time. There's a nuke going to go off. No, I'm going to tell you about their backstory. Let's be honest. Raging Raven is kind of the worst one. The worst
Raging Raven is probably the worst thing in Metal Gear Solid as a saga.
Yeah.
Like, full stop.
I don't mind the design. I don't mind any of their designs. I think all their designs are really cool.
Okay.
But yeah, Rage Raven's kind of... But that whole chapter isn't great either.
No. For gameplay, no.
No, for gameplay, yeah, it's very bad, and the fight is just completely shoehorned in. Laughing Octopus is great. Crying Wolf is nostalgic as fuck. Screaming Mantis is just one hell of a great name. Screaming Mantis. That's horrifying. And then you see her, it's like, that's even more horrifying. Yeah, they're okay. All the boss fights are okay.
That's your thoughts on
there's
them,
two
is
bosses.
it?
Two bosses in the whole thing that are good. And the rest are just there to be boss fights. They don't really add much.
They're quite uninspiring, a lot of them.
Yeah, even their I'm not really that mad on their designs. I think they're kind of they all lack character, I think.
Okay.
You know, they all kind of look the same. I know the silhouettes are slightly different because some of them are in like a mechanized wolf and stuff like that, but the characters themselves are kind of all wearing the same outfits and they go on the same and their backstories are almost exactly the same.
Copy and paste.
Minus,
Yeah.
huh?
Copy and paste.
They just all have different.
Change the emotion and change the animal. That's
I think the
That's pretty much it.
I think Laughing Octopus is the best one. Just because it is the first one you counter. The fight itself is actually interesting.
Yeah.
Pretty much hide and seek in it seems like kind of like a haunted house almost.
Yeah.
And the backstory hits hard, I think, because
the first time.
it's the first time you hear it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then once you start fighting the other ones, you're kind of like, oh, okay, right. It's like Laughing Octopus all over again. And the fights they're not great. Even the Crying Wolf one, the fight is not good.
Nostalgic though.
I'm about to fucking shock you guys.
Are you?
You fucking ready for this shit?
Okay, go on.
On paper, I fucking love the Beauty and the Beast core. I was so excited for them. I couldn't believe it. The second they were announced and I saw their names, I was like, wow. Because for me, I totally bought into that. This was like the finale. This is it. This is the big one. And what they were was a mishmash of every boss we fought before. So their name is a mishmash of the emotions from the Cobras and then the fucking badass animal code names from the first game, right? But their weapons and their technology was like the bosses from the second game, you know? So Laughing Octopus had like the tentacles and the gun of Solidus. And then Raging Raven, I mean, I'm making excuses here, but explosives, right? Fat Man. And then Crying Wolf had the fucking railgun of Fortune, and Screaming Mantis had like the knives of Vamp, right? So I was like, wow, this is so cool. And I remember the first time I saw them in a magazine, and I don't think I looked at their silhouettes closely enough because I automatically assumed that what they were, which in some ways is cooler than what they actually are. At first I thought what they were, and I remember going around and telling people, man, you know what they're doing with the bosses in the new game, as if I knew for a fact, like, and people are like, wow, that's unreal. It's like, yeah, you heard it here first, folks. I was fully convinced that they were, do you know, like Grey Fox is obviously a cyborg sort of reincarnation of Grey Fox who was pretty much dead.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, these are the cyborg ninja reincarnations of the guys from the first game, right? Like Liquid has brought back his fucking squad and they're taking revenge on the world. So I was like, Raging Raven is Vulcan Raven and Screaming Mantis is Psycho Mantis. I wasn't fucking far off on that one. But
No.
so that's what I thought they were at first. And I was so excited to see, in particular, I was so excited to see Laughing Octopus because like we never knew Decoy Octopus. And this is going to be so cool to finally get a chance to like. So obviously I was wrong. They're not that. So design-wise, I think they're awesome. In terms of what they actually are, yeah, I totally echo what you guys are saying. Really lackluster, kind of bosses for the sake of bosses as opposed to really fitting into the plot. The backstory is copy-paste. Laughing Octopus is the best of them and is the most interesting of them. And that fight is the most interesting of them. I think after that, Screaming Mantis.
Yeah.
Then
terms of
Crying
boss
Wolf
fight?
and then Raging Raven. No, in terms of like design, character, the whole lot, right?
I think my second favorite backstory is Crying Wolf.
Oh
I
yeah,
think that is
some
messed
backstories
up.
are
That
good.
is so
I
messed
actually
up.
wish though, right? And I do wish their backstories were a bit more varied. I do think that was kind of laziness, but I think it would have been so much better to get their backstories from Rose, because Rose is a psychiatrist in this game, and she's brought on to be your psychiatrist
Yeah.
to handle stress, right? But you never call her. You've no reason to call her at all. So she actually does fuck all in the plot. And Drebin is involved a lot. So for me, it would have been so much more interested if she like pulls up their old psych files. Like these are fucking psychopaths, like, and you actually hear elements of their story before you fight them.
Yeah.
Then
And then they
when
could
you just kill them and you get a call and you get like a fucking monologue of their backstory.
very clear that he had a backstory for them and did not know how to
Put it in.
at all. But yeah, I think that would have been much better if you knew bits and pieces, even if it was almost like Resident Evil style. You're picking up notes or something,
files or little tapes even,
and you have to like piece it all together, and then perhaps their backstory plays a role within the fight.
Yeah.
You know, like a scarecrow kind of moment or something. You know, I think they definitely could have made those fights a lot more interesting, but I do think there was time restrictions and hardware limitations that.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I think his fight with Laughing Octopus is really good. Like it speaks for itself. To segue from that, what's everyone's, before we get into all the other stuff, since we're on bosses and stuff, and there is some other boss fights, it's not just the four of them, but what is your favorite boss fight in the game?
Well, for me, it's there's three that are really good. Picking a favorite out of those three is tough because they're good for different reasons.
Yeah.
Laughing Octopus being one.
We're all going to take it the same three, I'd say.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Laughing Octopus, because as a new boss fight, it is interesting. It's kind of, it's a little bit like the Fear, a bit, having an enemy that you can't see, and also a little bit like the End because it's hiding and you have to go and try find the person.
And also a bit like Grey Fox, doing the whole looking for a stealth person within a sort of lab. Yeah.
But then it also feels new and fresh as well. So that's why I quite like that fight. But then, huge spoiler, obviously, there's a moment where you get to man Metal Gear Rex.
I mean, come on.
And you get to fight Metal Gear
Ray. Yeah.
In Metal Gear Rex. And it's like, you dreamed of that as a kid, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You dreamed of using Rex as a kid.
And you're like, of course Solid Snake gets Rex. And of course Liquid gets Ray. Come on. Like,
that's a badass fight.
Yeah.
And then the third fight then is actually hand-to-hand combat on top of Haven fighting Ocelot.
Yeah, with the life bars and the music changing to reflect the journey you've been on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you know which one's your favorite? Actually, I'll come to Eric. We'll come back to you.
No.
Yeah.
You're on, Adam. You're on, Adam. Let Adam endure.
You're like, I am not ready. I'm not ready. Okay, go on, Adam. Yeah, can you pick a favorite between them?
Whatever he picks, I'll pick the opposite.
Probably.
Let's all pick one of those three each. We cover our asses.
I think I might have to just say the Rex one, just because every time you go to play it, I think that is just fun anyway, right? Regardless of what's going on in the theme and all that kind of stuff, it is actually just fun to do all the different things that Rex does. Like the different, like his machine guns, his attacks, his missiles, whatever it is, and just breaking up the area around you in Rex is really, really fun. Because I think the fight against Ocelot, it's not really a fun fight. It's just what's going on is really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with Rex.
Rex. Okay, Eric.
Well, now I have to pick. I was going to go at Rex because I thought Adam was going to choose Ocelot.
No, I want your honest one. I know it's not about who picked what. It's, as long as you picked
okay, what? I mean, if we're being honest, I would reckon we're all going to pick Rex. But I'm going to pick Ocelot just so then I can talk about that because I haven't talked about, pretty much mentioned everything that's great about the Rex fight. But actually, you mentioned everything that's great about the Ocelot fight too, to be honest. But yeah, I'll go with the Ocelot one. Just because you have the life bars that change per game, and then you have the music that's per game. The fighting styles change per game. Mm-hmm. You get the flashbacks to each version of Liquid and Ocelot from each game as well. Yeah. Which is just, and then just the slow beating, which kind of reminds me of like the hand-to-hand fight, the end of Mission Impossible 2. where they're just going at each
Yeah.
other and just
Yeah.
beating each other until eventually one of them falls, which
Yeah.
I think is great. And it's just a great finale fight to the whole thing on
The
top
whole
of Haven.
series.
The
Yeah.
whole series, yeah.
Yeah, no, the Ocelot fight is my favorite fight too, for all those reasons. But yeah, I mean the Rex one definitely comes in very close. Like Rex and Ray, come on, like that's just fucking crazy. You're like, you dream of that happening, and you think it'll never happen, and then he goes, you know what? It's weird that he always was like, I'm never making another one, and I don't want to make this one, because then he makes another one and he puts absolutely everything you could possibly want into it, and when he makes 4, he goes, I'm gonna tie up everything and give you just like the dream at Metal Gear battle. You just go, fucking wow. You hate this? you're like helping us out here, man. But yeah, the Ocelot fight is definitely my favorite. Yeah, it's not a fun fight, but I think I definitely love the way it progresses. The life bar change and the music change and the fighting style change, and then them slowly boxing each other out until yeah, it's just fucking great, like, you know, because it starts off with such pace and such energy, and then it just comes to a close, and it's like you feel like the series is coming to its close within that fight. It's just fucking great. It's like, it's sort of like, I mean, it's not the same kind of energy, but it's like Anakin and Obi-Wan. You know, it's just like this biblical fight almost. You know, it's the big showdown. I love it. Since we've mentioned Ocelot, we're gonna have to talk about now his role, not in this game, because his role in this game is his role in the series as a whole.
Yeah, I think we touched on it a little bit in the last episode. Snake Eater, I think we alluded to the fact that he has such a huge role to play across the entire thing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, actually, as well, because we talked about, I think, when we talked about MGS1, I remember, Adam, I asked you, who's your favorite character? And you went, oh, yeah, I think Ocelot. And I was like, because of this game or because of the series? And you were like, because of this game, but because of the series, yeah, way more.
Yeah.
You know, he's the role that he plays in this series. You're like, did he fucking plan this shit? Like, it's so weird that he always had like a cliffhanger, and you're like, how could you possibly leave that hanging? Like, this is too good to leave. Like, you're never convinced there's like, Kojima, you're not done. Now, actually, after 4, I was convinced. I was like, he is done. Like, this is definitely, it's done. And I do not need, as much as I love Metal Gear Solid, I do not need another one, because for me, it was such a satisfying conclusion to the whole story. But what do you guys think of Ocelot's role in this game and the series now as a whole?
What a genius!
The hell out of me. Like,
I'm pretty
takes
sure.
a while.
Yeah, first time is like, huh? But then again, I'm pretty sure first time with Metal Gear Solid 4, I was like, huh? I mean, I'm still like, what's with the military soldiers? Like, huh?
First time, I was definitely convinced that he was possessed by liquid. But then, so was he, right?
No.
No, I don't think he was convinced. He just not convinced, just made to
I thought
act like him.
Yeah, no, because I was like, is it not that to complete his goal, he had to like become something that the Patriots couldn't predict, and genuinely hypnotize himself to believe he is liquid?
No,
because then at the end he doesn't acknowledge.
He hypnotized himself to be able to perfectly mimic Liquid Snake, so that everyone can be convinced he was Liquid Snake. And then he also has Liquid Snake's nanomachines, so the Patriots couldn't control him. But he's always Ocelot. That's why in the fourth one, he never mimics Liquid Snake. He's only ever Ocelot.
He's always pretending.
He's always pretending. He's not even Ocelot. He's actually an 8-year-old Vietnamese child.
Because at the very end, he does the whole, "You're pretty good."
He does. For his final little send-off. Yeah.
Which is his little, I suppose, thing the whole way through the games. But, he is. And what I think is really interesting about him as a character is he is the good guy, kind of. He's the guy. I know you're fighting him.
Yeah.
But you're playing a Snake, a guy who's actually doing the bad guy's work in every game.
In every game.
You are working for the bad guys.
Always.
Even though you don't realize it. And the guy that you're trying to fight this whole time is actually against the people that are controlling you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Ocelot is the hero of the saga.
Wow.
Wow.
But he is willing to kill an awful lot of people. Ocelot is definitely a ends justify the means kind of guy, right?
He's
Like the overall goal of freedom from the Patriots is worth any price to pay. No matter what that price is, it's worth it.
Yeah.
He will
Right?
become the villain of the story to stop the real villains of the story.
But he doesn't actually, in an interesting way, he doesn't do the kind of sacrifice like that the boss does, right? Like, because
I think he
that's where I
does.
feel like you were going. No, because in history it goes down as Ocelot, the loyal spy of the Patriot, was possessed by Liquid, and Liquid made him do all those bad things.
Right. Yeah.
But Liquid goes down in
Yeah.
history as the villain.
Yes.
Yeah.
The boss is sacrificing her post-mortem name.
Yes.
Liquid was sacrificing his life.
Oh, Ocelot, you mean?
Sorry, Ocelot. Yeah,
Yeah,
Ocelot was sacrificing his life. So he's like, look, if I die, I don't give a shit what you say about me. Doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
he sacrificed his entire life because he was never straight with anyone.
No, well, this is true. Yeah.
So I think Ocelot it made a larger sacrifice than the boss.
In some way, it's amazing that in the end, because you're always wondering who Ocelot is loyal to, and his loyalty always shifts and changes in the games. And in the end, what it is he is loyal to his mission, and his mission alone. Well, him and Eva came up with this mission, but even to pull it off, he needed to deceive her. Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that? Am I wrong there? Like the two of them were like, we need to take down the Patriots.
Yeah,
This has gone way too far. We need to stop this. And then he's like, okay. There's only one way to do this, though, and I can't even fill you in on it. Like no one can know. It's the only way to do it. Is that even I have to feel like I have to seem like I don't know. Right? Like I gotta lie to the world.
I can't even tell myself the plan.
I can't tell myself what's going on. But there's an element to that, right? Like she's like he has to become someone else so that even she can't talk sense into him.
Yeah, no, she genuinely thinks that that's Liquid as well.
Isn't that fucking crazy?
Yeah.
Nuts. Anyway,
man.
So we've talked a lot about what would be considered the villains of the story, right? Let's hop over to the hero side. And actually, we'll kick it off with there's a certain character that everyone hated in MGS2. They hated him, right? Even though we talked about how he was such a necessary character and it was important for MGS2's story. And he makes a comeback in this game in the form of very, very many awesome cutscenes, and he does lots of awesome stuff. How did everyone feel about Johnny? Yeah. How did everyone feel about Raiden in this game?
So cool.
Why do I say how did everyone feel? There's only fucking 3 of us, like.
And the audience.
Joel. How do y'all feel about it?
We got a Raiden for everyone in the audience.
Well, I never had a problem with Raiden anyway.
You were happy.
Yeah, I was grand. But I like that this was a moment to kind of redeem the character and make him. I guess I don't think anyone hated Raiden in MGS4. I mean, how can you? You know, he appears as the cyborg ninja. What's there to hate?
Yeah.
And he almost becomes Jack the Ripper, which we've discussed is one of the cooler sides of Raiden.
Yeah.
He takes on this dark path, and he kind of loses his humanity, and eventually, redeems himself and finds it at the end.
Yeah, right. That fucking cutscene where he has no arms, but is wearing a sleeveless jacket and has the sword in his mouth and lightning powers. It's like this is a bit nuts. Like I know Metal Gear Solid, but this is a bit nuts. I just did a fucking fight in 2 Metal Gears, but this is fucking weird. What did you think of Raiden, Eric?
I loved him. He comes down and he kills 4 geckos in an instant, and then takes on Vamp in a very then that's like another
I love
iconic.
I love their conflict.
Yeah,
I think
like
it's really
an
good.
iconic conflict of like they're kind of both cyborgs in that, but
And they're both waiting to die.
yeah, that's great.
Almost. Yeah. It's really cool. I love everything to do with Raiden in this
His
game.
mask is cool.
I love his character. I love what's going on with him and Rose and stuff, and that there's that Rose has supposedly had a child with Campbell, and what's going on there. Like, there's so many arcs that are going on and twisted. Lots of people are making little sacrifices as they go on. The only thing I don't like about Raiden in this game, I fucking hate his ninja suit. I hate it. Yeah, I hate it.
Why?
I wish it was the Ninja Grey Fox suit. I just wish it was that.
Can't do that though.
Gray foxes, though.
And
You
then,
know what
like,
I mean? Like,
no, but Olga had that.
no, she didn't.
She had a variation of it.
Yeah, what I mean is, I wish it was a variation of that. I wish it was Raiden's variation of that. I don't like the glass look and everything. I'm not into it.
No, it's cool, man. You're
It's
wrong.
just me. I like it. I wish it was I wish he'd come down. You saw Ninja standing up, come down, kills all the things, and then he looks up and the thing opens up and you see Raiden's face. Like, you already know it's Raiden, but when it happens and you're just like, yeah, because we were all pretty much saying like, oh, Raiden's gonna be the next Ninja, but I just don't like the look of him. That's all. But the way his character is fantastic. Like, the way he's utilized, everything he does is amazing. So it's like it doesn't make me hate the character. I just wish that it's the final game. I wish I got to see the sort of Ninja Grey Fox look again one last time, and to see that suit fight Vamp would have been fucking great. That's just me. Everyone else is like,
You should have played the Metal Gear Rising game where you get
I did.
where you actually do have the Grey Fox outfit.
Yeah, no, I did play it.
All right, which outfit was worse then? The one in Metal Gear Solid 4 or his official one from Metal Gear Rising?
I think I actually prefer the one in Metal Gear Rising.
They're not that much different.
They're not hugely different, no. I mean, there's things about that I don't like. I don't like the strappy eye patch thingy, but hey, stop changing the subject, okay? we're on Raiden. Okay.
Yeah, we were still on Raiden.
We're still on Raiden. Well, what else is there to say about Raiden? You got anything else to say about him? I like him. I don't like his suit. That's all I got.
Well, I think it's great that they kind of at the end of MGS2, he was saying that pretty much his next mission was to go save Olga's child from the Patriots, and we never see him do that, but we see the outcome of that, which is Sonny, who now lives with Otacon and Snake.
So funny.
And he's gone like AWOL after that.
Yeah.
He's almost like a Hawkeye in Endgame kind of a thing. You know, he's just gone off, just taking on the world as a ninja. But I think as a new cast of characters, Sonny is one of the most important additions to the story.
It's amazing, isn't it? Like, this child actually has a huge role to play in the series as a result. What do we think of Sonny as a character?
I think at first she's fairly like, you know, there's that Japanese anime kind of approach to, you know, depicting children in things. I think she could have been portrayed a little bit better, but
right,
you know, her importance in it, and I suppose her innocence is a really important factor. You know, because she's growing up in isolation.
Yeah.
She's never seen the outside world, and she just wishes. I mean, she's a bit like Rapunzel in this kind of story.
Well, I love that. I love that theme of it. Like, I do agree. Yeah, the voice actor can be a bit annoying. Like, not necessarily. I don't think she's portrayed particularly well, but as a character, the idea of always been on the move, grew up in isolation inside a plane or inside buildings, or like never seen the outside world, and it really resonates when. And she just knows so much about technology because that's all she's been around. That's what she's grown up with. And it's basically like, this is what the children of the world, like, this is the world they're growing up in, and this is the world they're living in. And it's fascinating then when she obviously plays a huge role in taking it all down. And at the end, she's outside and she sees another child. And she gets to play with another child for the first time. And like, that's sort of what the Metal Gear Solid series pretty much ends on. I know there's more after that. But literally, like, the happy ending is two children from different countries playing together.
Yeah.
And, like, the war is over. Like, it's a really it's a really powerful image, I think.
The hopes of everybody, isn't it? The children from two different nations.
All wars will end, and children from all different nations will just play together. Well, I
Exactly.
suppose so. That's the hope for the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a lovely image that she has that flower in her hair for so long. I know Naomi gives it to her, but there's a little element of nature that, like, other people, it would mean nothing to them, but it means a lot to Sunny. Because she doesn't get to see the outside, so it's cool. What did you think of Sunny, Eric?
I really like the kind of paternal instinct that comes into Snake and Otacon and Raiden, and maternal instinct actually that goes into Naomi. That, like, everyone just instantly gets a connection to Sunny that kind of makes them a lot more human. Reminds you that they're human by having just this one character that's just new, and it just makes everything feel a lot more realistic and kind of grows them up a bit more.
I suppose there's kind of a frustration with them as well. Like Snake, I think, gets a little bit frustrated around Sunny
because she keeps putting out cigarettes.
Well, it's not just that. It's just that, I suppose she intervenes with such innocence, and Snake is just like, he's old, and he's just like, you just don't know how the world is. You don't know how things are going. Just stop with your input. Yet it's because of her they win. You know, it's because of her input that they win at the end.
Yeah, but it's also a lovely callback or parallel. Like, you see how far Snake has come, and it is as a result of spending so much time with Otacon. Like, Otacon has done wonders for Snake as a person, right?
Yeah.
Because in the first game, the whole theme of the first game is how cold Snake is, and that he's not close to anyone, and that he doesn't care about anyone, and all he does is kill, and he follows his orders. That Snake would never look after a little child.
No.
Never. There's now, he's part of philanthropy. The whole thing is about fighting to protect the world and save the world. Like, no one's really paying them to do this. I actually don't know where to get their money from. I think
who flies their plane? Do they have a pilot? Like,
oh yeah, there's two pilots, I think, on the ticket shows them at one point. But like, there is.
What do they ever do? Like,
there's supposed to be other members of philanthropy as a whole, but I don't know who funds it or where to get their money from. But it's just, it is. There's a sitcom out there someday. There's a sitcom out there someday of Snake and Otacon looking after Sunny. Yeah. It'd be so good.
There is, like, in-game photographs or something, isn't there? Of, like, I think in the kitchen or something. If you control the Mark II during cutscenes, you can see, like, behind the scenes kind of photographs of what's going on. Yeah, I think so.
I don't remember that. But okay, so we won't be able to talk about every single good character that comes back in this game, right? There's a huge cast. But which returning character were you most happy to see back, or do you like that what they did with their character and their role?
Probably Vamp.
I mean, I said good characters, but I get you. Vamp does return.
Good characters. Just as you mentioned, as a character that's portrayed good.
It's nice to see Vamp back. I'll agree with you.
No, not really. Campbell, maybe.
Yeah, just happy to see him after 3. Not seen him for a while.
Yeah, he looks a bit weird though, didn't he?
He's very old.
Yeah, he's old, man.
Yeah, I know, but there's just something about him that just
be a bit sensitive. Like,
if
the guy
it wasn't
aged.
for the voice, I wouldn't recognize that as Campbell.
Yeah, well, I suppose we always saw him, like, in the first game, he's just a drawing, right, with a mouth moving, and in the second game, it's a digital augmentation of him. He possibly doesn't even look that fresh or that young, like,
Yeah, but there's certain characters, like even with Snake, going from MGS1 to MGS2, like Solid Snake looks like, what I mean? Like, it translates well, but there's something about Campbell. It's like his face is squished or something. He's like he kind of looks like Toad Hall kind of dude, isn't he? He's like a bit weird looking.
You're looking weird, man. What about you, Eric? Which character were you most happy to see?
Merle or Naomi, because they were so crucial to Metal Gear Solid 1. So it's great to see them play a role within Metal Gear Solid 4.
Yeah.
The real star was Johnny, though.
Come on.
Oh, Johnny was class, but Johnny was class. Actually, wasn't he also very crucial? Like, because he never got because he was afraid of everything.
Yeah. Nanomachines. He ended up being pretty much the best soldier in the end because he could not be controlled or affected by the system.
I absolutely love that. Like, like
they took a joke and turned it into an actual story point.
Yeah, like they even explained why used to shit himself, in
They
every
explained
game.
everything in this fucking It's so good. I love that. I was definitely also excited for Meryl and Naomi. I think when the game was leading up to it, I was more excited for Meryl. I was really excited about seeing her come back into the story. But when I actually saw the game and played through it, Naomi was the one that I was happiest to see back. I think the way she was utilized was really good. It was nice to see her in person. Like, we only ever saw her on the Codex, so it was nice to actually see her in person, see her interact with Otacon, and to see how involved in the mythology she is as well. Like that she was responsible for Vamp too, and that she studied under Dr. Clark, and we find out who Dr. Clark was, and it's just fucking crazy. It's so crazy.
I think that's probably one of the finest moments in the game is when you start hearing like who everyone ended up being. Like, so Sigint from Snake Eater becomes the DARPA chief in MGS1.
Wow.
Paramedic from Snake Eater becomes Dr. Clark, who makes the ninja in MGS1. Major Zero is the guy who ends up like, well, I suppose all of them create the Patriots, but he takes the Patriots to this kind of tyrannical level.
Yeah.
It's like
he becomes obsessed with information and control, right? And it's based on that's the thing. The whole thing is based on his interpretation and Big Boss's interpretation of the boss's dying words.
Yeah, like both of them went
of a world made whole. Zero thinks, well, that can only be done through total control and everyone following the same ideas and ideology and censorship. And then Big Boss's idea as well, no, it's actually for a world to be whole, there needs to be no borders, no rules, no control. People need to be able to be in control of their own destiny, and it's...
Yeah, I think like Big Boss, like, because neither of them... I think when I first played it, I was like, oh, right, so Big Boss was actually a good guy, but it's not really that.
It's not as clear as that. No, I don't think...
He is taking the bosses to anarchy.
Yeah.
And Zero is wanting to do it through censorship.
Yeah.
And it's probably an age-old debate in terms of politics.
It's Hobbes and Locke, right?
Yeah.
It's that human nature debate.
And then it's Sonny who kind of goes, well, actually, we can have both.
Yeah, why don't you just do the best bits of both? Like, why can't we keep the good shit and get rid of the bad shit? Like, oh.
Wow. What an idea.
Wow. Kid, you're crazy. Children, they're nuts. Yeah, it's a fascinating story when it comes down to that's what the MGS saga as a whole is really about. Two people trying to fulfill the wishes of someone that they looked up to as a hero, and as a result tearing the world apart.
Yeah, two guys who didn't stop to go, how about we combine our ideas? No, it took a 13-year-old kid.
But I suppose they were so adamant that the other one was wrong. They were so convinced that what they were doing is the right way, and it's that whole thing of like the greatest villain is the villain who thinks they're right.
Yeah, I was one thing I always wondered was like I saw these as friends, like in Snake Eater, they were friends, and I just didn't understand like how could they separate so much. But I mean, growing up, you start to see it even in your own personal lives. You can see how politics can actually separate people.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It can actually tear families apart.
Yeah.
That's why we actually are doing this.
That's why we're doing this.
Not because of COVID at all.
The lockdown is actually over, and we we refuse to see each other. We fucking these fucking bastards. You know what they believe? No. I suppose then we've gotten into we're talking now the moments of like the big twists, the big reveals. What's everyone's favorite twist or reveal? Or like this is the mother of them, right? Because in the other games you go, yeah, my favorite twist is the big twist, that's the best one. In this one, every fucking cutscene has a big twist and a big reveal. It affects the rest of the series. It's a tough one, but is there one that you always knew like blew your mind or stuck out to you the most? Or
I think it's the one in Europe for me when Big Mama.
Which one? she
goes on for like 3 hours.
I know she goes on for 3 hours, but that entire 3 hours is a great twist.
Yeah.
And it's the one where she's pretty much tying up everything. Like, I think that's the meatiest part of the story.
It's the architect scene, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't actually tell you everything because some of the things are incorrect, but I think you get the most of it there.
Well, I think because you're referring to Dr. Clark in the first game is male. But then she says as paramedic, a paramedic from 3 was female.
Yeah, that's a little oversight. I think. I think that's.
I mean,
just
she could have just got sex change.
Well, that's possible too. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's possible too. Yeah, it doesn't.
Or
really...
else the credentials could have been incorrect. It could have been just a cover up and all that kind of stuff. I don't think it's not really a much of a, you know.
Which flaw are you talking about then?
It's not flaw. I think it's just that
she has some of her information wrong.
Mistake.
Like Eva would think that Ocelot is actually liquid, like things like that. That it's revealed later that that's not the case.
Yeah.
Things like that. That for the whole time it was the Patriots were controlling you anyway. That Rat Patrol team were sent in by the Patriots. Things like that.
Yeah.
They don't really tell you all that in the Europe scene, but they do give you I think most of the backstory, in Europe. And it's the only redeemable part, I think, of Act 3.
Yeah, because following that guy for so long is boring, really boring, and really uninspired, I think.
Yeah.
They definitely could have approached that much better. Eric, did you have a favorite?
I mean, it's gotta be the same one, like just the.
But is there a specific one within that that's like that was the one that absolutely blew my mind? Wow.
Why can't you just be satisfied with the answer I gave?
I mean, you can leave it at that if you want, but I'm just curious.
I'm trying to think because she does just kind of go on and go on and on and on.
Now you look like you hate it.
Can you remember even okay? So we have Sigint being the DARPA chief. That's a pretty amazing one.
Superb one.
Paramedic being Dr. Clark.
Yeah.
Mama being the surrogate mother.
Well, yeah, even finding out that Eva is the mother of Solid Liquid, which like you're kind of like, I remember in Snake Eater, you're kind of like, could she be? And you're like, nah, because they were clones, right? They're made in tube or something. And then it's like, oh, she is.
I'm not saying this is my favorite one, but it is a really good one. The Asian mother.
Oh, that's great.
That's great.
That one's
amazing.
That one absolutely blows my mind. So what is it? It's Vulcan Raven in the first game. Out of nowhere. It's just a cool line. It's a cool proverby line because he's a shaman. He gets out of a tank and he goes, blood from the east flows in your veins, right? You're just like, wow, cool line, bro. Because Shiva decides, right? Not like he goes back and he's like, I'm gonna explain Johnny's shits. I'm gonna explain who the mother was. I'm gonna explain who the Patriots were. I'm gonna explain why I used a different cast of just 3. I'm gonna explain what Ocelot was. I'm gonna explain everything. I'm also gonna explain why Vulcan Raven said that line. Is it a Japanese woman's egg was put in Eva? So her womb was used to carry that egg and then DNA from Big Boss. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
That why blood from the east flows in his veins?
Yeah.
Yeah, that absolutely blew my... I was like...
It is amazing because initially it was just blood from the east flows in you. It was just a nod to it being a Japanese game.
Yeah.
Is the reason that was said.
Him saying weird proverby things because he's a shaman.
Yeah, but the fact that they actually, cleared that up, that's
that was the moment where I went, I am fully and I know it's not true, but I remember when that happened. That was the moment when I am fully convinced he planned this from the beginning. Everything laid out. Yeah, absolutely. It was like when J.K. Rowling sat on the train and she in that train journey came up with the entire Harry Potter saga. Yeah, absolutely. Kojima. He knew exactly what he was doing every step of the way. Convinced. Absolutely convinced.
Yeah, I think there's a lot, and I think that entire cutscene, you're just there, I think I could have gotten through about 5 different tubs of popcorn, just, soaking in all that information. It was just amazing,
Yeah, it's it is the truth, though. It's and that's why this game, I think, relies on the other games. Gameplay alone, this game is not great.
No.
It's really not. There is good stuff in it, but it just doesn't give you enough time to use it and enough scenarios to use it.
Yeah.
But the story, the payoff to the series you've just played, fucking wow. I think I told you
it's not a unique story. It's not
No.
I wouldn't say it's not the best in the series. MGS4.
Standalone? Or a game or story?
Both. I don't
yeah.
think it's the best in the because it's reliant too heavily on what came before it.
Mm.
It's it's really just the best wrap up I've ever seen to anything.
Yeah, no, I
I've
would agree with
never
that.
I've never seen a TV series that ends better than this. I've never
No.
seen a movie series that ends better than it.
No, not one. Not a single one. Yeah, I give MGS4
Ah,
the credit of being the best wrap up I've ever seen.
Go on then. What are you gonna say?
Return of the King. That's pretty fucking class, like.
No,
Return of the
we're
King
not
was
saying it's not. It's Return of the King is still one of the best endings to a movie trilogy out there. But so we're not saying Return of the King isn't as good as MGS4. We're saying MGS4 is the best wrap up of any series ever. Purely wrap up.
Plus,
Return of the King is a standalone movie.
You can't really compare those two because you've
No.
got one that's already written and prepared versus someone who's trying to wrap up everything loose ends
retroactively.
that that's already done and dusted, and they're trying to make this up as they go and look at like as if it was a coherent story.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen that in anything else.
No. Well, it is basically what George Lucas was doing, but way better. Like execute way better. Now I know with George Lucas what it was to go back and make sure I get to this point. Whereas this time around it's I need to make sure that these three very disjointed games now all wrap up into one wonderful bubble where it's like I was always heading to this point, even though I wasn't, because every game I made was the fucking last one. But this one is definitely the last one.
And they never made any others afterwards.
So yeah, fucking wow. It blew my mind. I told you this before, but it was off podcast. We, myself and Danny, who was on the last episode, we were introducing this series to Lee, another friend of ours, because we were like Lee liked a lot of games, and we were like, he would love Metal Gear Solid. Like it's right up his alley. Like this badass action hero, this huge plot of nations and war and stealth, and like it's right up his alley. So we did. We would do a sleepover. We had like a week break between each one. And we would play, we'd start early in the day, right through the night, play an entire game in one go. And then afterwards sort of discuss the best bits of it and everything, and like we're doing now. And he played Metal Gear Solid 1. He wasn't really digging it. He was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? This is the fucking greatest thing ever. He wasn't really digging it. There was too many, the cutscenes are too long. There's too many cutscenes. I suppose you haven't grown up with that. You're used to playing a lot of the story. Like even like if you played the Naughty Dog games, like Uncharted, the story is given to you as you're walking sometimes, or as you're moving or climbing and stuff. So when you get used to that, and you go back and you realize you're gonna have to put the controller down a lot. I get that could be quite jarring. We did MGS2 next. He really didn't like that. He was not having that at all, right? Okay, first of all, he doesn't like writing. Like a lot of people didn't. Fair enough. But now he's getting all these cutscenes and listening to writing. So he was like, oh, fuck this. Snake Eater then, he was really starting to warm up to it. He really liked Snake Eater because of the Cold War setting, and he was like, oh, the James Bond theme song, and you know, like he was starting to see things that he was starting to really like about it. But MGS4 was when it all clicked for him. Because at this point now he's used to the long cutscenes, and he's like, oh, I get it. We're going to watch a lot of cutscenes, and there's a lot about plot, a lot of story. And because we were doing it week by week, it wasn't like years wait. It was like everything was kind of like really linear, like a show. And there was a certain scene. That's my favorite scene in the game. You know, you're climbing through the radiator, hall, and the music gets real sad, and they go split screen, and you're like, I've never seen anything like this before. I am controlling my character, and a cutscene is playing. Kojima, fucking hell. And you keep tapping the button, and you're getting zapped, and you're trying to keep going, and you're seeing Meryl and Johnny are nearly going to die. They're back to back, and the music's building up, and Mei Ling is back, and she's in the ship, and the fucking ray's coming up at her. And you're like, come on, Lee, you gotta do it, And he was tapping, he was like, I can't do it. We're like, come on, Lee. And that was like the moment where, like, it's like the whole series had culminated into, wow, this has been a journey, you know?
Yeah. That is an amazing moment, though.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And it is definitely my favorite part of that game, that moment, because they've built up to it so well. And Snake is dying, and it's like his final
But it's
thing.
also like, you know, every single one of them has had a torture scene.
Except for, and this always bothered me, like I know what you mean by that, a torture scene where you actually have to tap the button and resist, right?
Yeah.
3 he doesn't, and it had the perfect opportunity to do so because there's a scene where he is tortured, but
Yeah, he's tortured. Right?
you have no. I always thought it was weird because I always enjoyed those bits. You know what I mean?
That is weird. That is weird. Wanting
That you
enjoy
weird.
them.
That's weird either way. No,
but it's
yeah.
like it's version. It's like in every game your character is put through torture.
Yeah.
This is the first time your character purposely goes through torture in order to complete their goal.
And knows he has to go through it.
Yeah.
If you know, like when he gets to the end of that and he gets through the door and he needs Otacon to like plug in Fox Alive, the new virus to take down the Patriots, and then all the Scarabs come out of nowhere and they're all going to shock Snake to death. If Snake died and then they destroyed the Mark II or Mark III, does Ocelot's plan just fail? Does he go, crap,
Yes,
maybe I
yeah.
put in too many defenses there. Maybe the radiator was a bit too long. What a twat I am.
What?
Like so Ocelot's plan would have failed if Snake...
right, yeah. Well...
Or was Metal Gear Ray's railgun like the backup plan?
No.
Ocelot is just such a good double agent, right? That...
Fuck off. His plan was
His-
totally on chance. He was hoping...
There's definitely an element of chance, yeah.
Oh yeah, there's it was
100%.
definitely a gamble, but he knew that the only way to get Snake to complete his mission was through resistance.
Oh yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah.
But he could have just not put the Scarabs there. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't
Or
know if he
just
has
made
much control over them. I think they just automate and do their thing.
No, but just not put them in the fucking room. Just not have them anywhere near the room. Or make the radiator room a lot smaller. You know what I mean? His plan was a bit
I love how the server room mimics the imagery of a graveyard.
Yeah, really good.
That is cool.
So
That is
cool.
cool.
And then when they play the final thing and Naomi pops up on every screen and everything, and it's like a final farewell because she's dead at this point. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
wow. And hell.
She
Wow.
overdoses on
It was the nano machines that was keeping her alive, wasn't it?
She had the
Yes.
same machines that Vamp had.
Yeah. Wow.
How many times did it take you to figure out how to defeat Vamp?
I had to ask Adam because I was pretty much in fucking tears due to rage, punching my leg because this guy would not die. I'm pretty sure I had to turn it off because I was that angry.
I figured out.
Oh, I was definitely told what to do. I definitely did not.
I
figure it.
figured out almost immediately.
Really?
Yeah.
That's another one of those. It's a classic Metal Gear Solid fight where it's like the first time it takes a bit of thinking, but once you know what to do, the fight is not very good.
Yeah, no, I figured out almost immediately just because it's like I've done this before, you know what I mean? That kind of that thinking outside the box kind of thing.
What do I have that might do something here?
Yeah, like it just felt like as I fought Vamp before, I know you can't take him down. So I knew it was going to have to be something that I have that will take him down, and it's essentially the revival pill version of this, you know.
Essentially, that's what it is.
I think the one that took me a while was actually Screaming Mantis. I think that one.
That's right.
I wasn't
another
as quick to figure that one.
So
I was because it involved shooting.
no, but you have to
No, it
then
didn't.
you have to get the doll to finish it off.
Yeah, you have to control her with the doll.
Oh yeah.
Find a way to beat her. Am I right then, or is it just a weird moment? Like it's an awesome moment. I love it, but so Psycho Mantis spirit had control of Screaming Mantis.
Yeah, nanomachines.
So what? Psycho Mantis's nano machines were put into Screaming Mantis.
I don't know, but
And
that
then
seems
she
to be
was
the answer to everything in that
mind-controlling-
game.
Was she mind controlling the rest of the team then?
No, I think it's the Sorrow was able to bring back Psycho Mantis' ghost, who was then able to control Screaming Mantis, who was then also controlling the rest of the B&B.
But was the Sorrow not working against Psycho Mantis and helping you?
Was he? Was the Sorrow in that game? Because I pulled that one right out of my arse.
I think there's a moment that if you push a button, the Sorrow is basically does something to like help. Does it again holds up like a timer or something like that to kind of say get a move on. I think the Sorrow is on your side. Like the Sorrow is not a bad guy.
But he's a bad guy.
No, he's not. He's not a bad guy.
None of them are bad.
I
guys.
think
They're
it is.
just
I think it
But
is
is
just.
Psycho Mantis controlling, or is that just
Yes.
sort of a hallucination moment?
No,
I think he is.
Psycho Mantis
He's
control.
definitely controlling the B&B core. I
That's
don't
fucking-
know. I don't know whether it's true, like the nanomachine thingy. It probably is. Everything seems to be nanomachines.
Yeah.
Or if this was them saying that actually he did all this time have psychic powers.
I always thought he did. I didn't think that was down to nanomachines.
I always thought it was nanomachines.
Interesting. Eric, what did you think? Is Psycho Mantis really psychic? That's the name of this episode. No, mind, John. It's the fucking thumbnail on YouTube.
That'll get them.
I mean,
That'll get him. Everyone's been wondering that, right?
They don't state otherwise. But considering Fortune was able to make bullets go past her without any help, just her own will of strength, I would assume that Psycho Mantis is telepathic.
Yeah, like for me, because I think the series is definitely, it's not that all the supernatural stuff is explained away by nanomachines, because in the 60s there weren't nanomachines. And the Cobra unit.
Oh yeah.
So for me, no, I think Psycho Mantis is definitely psychic, because wasn't it he used to be like some sort of profiler, and then he read the mind of a psychopath and it fucked up his own mind or something like that. He used to do
this psychopath
profiling for the FBI.
went into his mind.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I think he's definitely, and then I think that is genuinely his spirit there at the end.
And
Yeah.
then a nice little nod back to the whole vibrating the controller and all that. And if
Yeah,
you don't have
a
if
nice
you don't have a
moment.
dual shock, it
nice.
doesn't vibrate.
It's a nice little like, and his hymn plays again. His hymn plays for that fight as well, doesn't it? For Scream, like a version of it plays in the background, I think.
I don't know.
Which is really nice.
A nice thing in that game is that because before that fight, the frogs jump down. So if you kill them, they burn and turn into ash. And usually when you run over their bodies, the ash just disappears. But for this, just before this fight, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So then Psycho Mantis uses the Sorrow Doll to raise the ash bodies to fight you. But if you trank them, then he uses Psycho Mantis' doll to bring back the live ones.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I thought that was a nice
Interesting.
attention to detail.
Yeah. I suppose we're getting to that kind of time, but there's something else I feel like we should talk about. Like we did when we were going non-spoilers, we did sort of allude to it. We said, like, well, I did. I said that I wish that it was in the Middle East up until chapter 4. And then in chapter 4, you go to exactly where you go to in chapter 4. Shadow Moses, lads.
That's my favorite part of the game.
Yeah, come on. How did you feel about going back to Shadow Moses?
I fucking love it. The song plays again. You get onto the helipad, the song plays.
Yeah, it's
great.
It's such a good time, and like the blizzard, and stuff.
flashbacks.
Like you only imagine that this is. I think we all kind of saw that and wanted like a remake of 1 after seeing those graphics.
Yeah.
My only flaw with it is that they have too many machines. They should have had.
Yeah, there's no enemies
humans.
in it really.
They should have had humans dressed not the same, but similarly to
I agree.
the soldiers from MGS1. But
I absolutely agree.
And there's ghosts in that chapter as Easter eggs. If
Yeah.
you hold the Sorrow Doll and take out your camera at certain points, there's pictures of the characters you killed in the first game or that died in the first game, plus also makers of the game,
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
which is a callback to the first game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love the whole Shadow Moses secret. Even hearing that you were going to go back there, even when they get up and say Shadow Moses, and you're like, no, stop. And then when you get there and the music plays
And it makes you play.
It does.
It reminds you. It makes you play the helipad sequence in PS1 style graphics first, just to kind of remind you, and then it shows you what it looks like in, these newer PS3 graphics.
And like that's another reason why this game is like one of the best wrap-ups I've ever seen, because it's like, look at how far we've come. And then at every moment there's little flashbacks of even voices, and like you walk past the surveillance camera, it's like a surveillance camera, but it's all echoey now, and you're like, wow.
Or
I have done all this
the
before.
hallway of blood.
Yeah.
And you get the flashback.
And you hear Grey Fox's crazy voice again and everything as you're going through, and you hear the slashes of people dying, and then I love that scene in the locker room where where him and Otacon talk about like, this is where we first met. So this is where our journey began. Like, it's like,
And it's bad how quickly you run through it all.
Yeah.
You cover the full length of Shadow Moses
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
in,
I suppose there's just nothing holding you back, really. But yeah.
Yeah, and parts of it obviously are destroyed, and like because you don't have to go through the two kind of towers. You're kind of along the bottom. The hallway that Sniper Wolf was shooting you is completely collapsed in.
Yeah.
Things like that. It's really cool.
Is there anything else we need to mention about Metal Gear Solid 4 before we finish this discussion? Is there anything that someone's like, I needed to bring that up actually in particular?
Oh yeah, Mount Rushmore. Their own version of Mount
Oh, yeah,
Rushmore.
that was kind of cool.
There's a lot of Easter eggs in the game.
There's loads. There's
a
loads.
shit ton. Like it's actually looking back over it was mad to see how much is in the game. But it feels like when you're playing it doesn't feel like you're doing a lot, like that there's nothing to do. Yeah, but if you actually take your time and like some of the areas like the Middle East and South America, there's a lot to do in those areas.
There is, yeah.
If you mess around essentially, and there's lots of collectibles.
And I thought Drebin was a great addition. I really like him.
You liked him?
I don't like that he gives you the B&B core storyline or anything like that. But I like his design, and I like that because as far as you're concerned, Ocelot is liquid at this point, and so everything he does is liquid, and you just have to kind of buy into that for the plot to work.
Yeah.
Drebin then plays the role of the sort of unpredictable double agent, who is he really working for kind of thing. But it was really interesting to me that he works for the Patriots and ends up helping you take the Patriots down, even though he's following the Patriots' orders. And by the end, he's happy to be free. He's like, I was sort of like a slave, I was a child slave.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that whole child slavery thing of like riding, and that the Patriots pick up children and then grow them into their own spies and soldiers. So I thought it was a cool addition. But yeah, that sums up our thoughts on Metal Gear Solid.
I suppose there's the
It doesn't.
It doesn't. No.
Even though it is over, but just as an after credits kind of discussion, there's the after credits scene.
Oh yeah, there is, and it goes on for fucking ever.
Yeah. So another
graveyard,
twisty
graveyard.
twist is that Big Boss is alive.
Yeah.
Now is that Big Boss or is that the other Big Boss?
No,
that's actually Big Boss.
That's actual Big Boss.
That's
Who's the other Big Boss?
The other Big Boss
is Solidus.
No. Oh, the one that they burned, the corpse? Yeah, that's Solidus. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because that was the.
He's a perfect clone. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Big Boss.
And actually, the thing is though, if you look at the corpse, you will notice that the eye is the wrong eye.
Yeah.
But that's the little detail. So it's like, and if you don't look at that, but it is there, and that's one of those things like on second playthrough. Now that you know it's Solidus, you'll see it. It's really good. But the thing about that as well, like that chapter is called Third Sun. So, and like Solid Sun, Liquid Sun, Liquid Sun, Solid Sun, Third Sun. We should have known it would be about Solidus, but yet he's not mentioned once, and it's only at the end you realize that chapter was actually about the corpse of Solidus. So it's really cool the way they wrapped the whole thing up.
What's the fourth one called again?
Twin Suns.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah.
And then the last one is Old Sun, is it?
The finale, yeah. The final piece. But yes, now that sums up our thoughts on Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots. There is a lot more to talk about it, and maybe it will come up in other topics in the future. But for now, that actually as well sums up our thoughts on the Metal Gear Solid series. We have now spoken about all of the Metal Gear Solid games in the saga in existence, and I know we're being a bit mean. But in case you're wondering,
yeah, because there was Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2, you don't want to forget about them.
No, we don't forget about them. We gotta acknowledge them. But we would love to know your thoughts on Metal Gear Solid 4 and the Metal Gear Solid series as a whole. Which twist, which reveal you like the most, which moments you like the most, which characters you like the most, how you felt about the bosses and all that other stuff. And until next time, we'll talk to you then. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.